ignorance. Unbelievable ignorance. You understand?
Maybe they are deliberate.
Well, but if you want to portray yourself deliberately as an ignorant person, then there's something wrong with you. How can we describe you beyond seeing you as a fool? You understand? But this is the reality. Yesterday, no, 2 days ago, I heard one of my colleagues in the media. What? Why would you give a microphone to such an ignorant person to poison our population? And you know what he was saying? That, oh, Africans, we had our own slaves. We used to call them donko. The guys called them udonko, and some people called them donko, and so on. So these white people came, and they said they wanted slaves. And we willingly sold our udonkos to them. I've heard even lawyers make that argument. And I'm wondering, are these lawyers making this argument? They say that, look, the resolution establishes a hierarchy of laws. And because it establishes a hierarchy of laws, it cannot be accepted. The American delegate made that argument. The delegates of the European Union made that argument. But Senator, it's one of the most useless arguments which has ever been made. Every law establishes a hierarchy. Ghana here, in Ghana, there are some crimes which are tried by the magistrate court. Alright? Some crimes cannot be tried by the magistrate court. They are tried by the circuit court. There are some crimes which cannot even be tried by the circuit court. They are tried by the high court. Is that not a hierarchy? For some crimes, you will end up with a small fine. You will go back home. In fact, bail is automatic for some crimes and so on. For some crimes, bail is not automatic. Is that not a hierarchy? For some crimes, you are sentenced to death by hanging. Is that not a hierarchy? So some crimes are more grievous than the others. And because some crimes are more grievous than the others, a hierarchy is established. So to argue that a resolution establishes a hierarchy of law and therefore that resolution must not be passed is to be mischievous, is to be dishonest, and is to display the highest level of illiteracy. You see, people don't learn, they don't read, they don't try to understand history, and they wake up and they talk nonsense. You see, I see history as a science. First and foremost, something very, very significant happened on the 25th of March. Something which shook the foundations of geopolitics as we know it today happened in the UN General Assembly. The world voted and decided that the transatlantic slave trade is the worst crime against humanity ever committed. This has seismic effect. And since then, in every space in the world where geopolitics is discussed, this has been the most important topic. In some areas, even the ongoing war of aggression being waged by Israel and the United States of America against Iran has receded into the background. I mean, this event has had a seismic effect. Now, if you look at the reactions to what has happened and so on, it also tells us very important stories about the people, the countries, organizations, and so on, which are taking different positions. Now, let's look at the voting pattern in the UN. And what does it tell us? One, you have the United States of America, which by any estimate is the biggest beneficiary of this crime, this horrendous crime which was committed against the African people. Does it take any effort to understand the United States of America's position? The biggest beneficiary of this horrendous crime which was committed against the African people. I'm not surprised that the US took that position. Then you come to Argentina. Argentina had one of the largest populations of African slaves. Today, you go to Argentina and it is difficult to identify the black community in Argentina because it deliberately carried out genocide against the African people. Genocide, deliberately carried out genocide against the African people. So Argentina is complicit in these crimes, and even beyond, after the abolition of the slave trade, Argentina continued to exterminate the black population. Can anybody be surprised? Certainly not. Then you come to Israel, which is, as we speak, committing genocide. In Palestine alone, it has killed 78,000 people, a number far bigger than the Jewish population which was exterminated during the Holocaust. 2/3 of those killed in Gaza are women and children. Israel is continued its policy of apartheid. Israel is an apartheid state. How does anybody expect an apartheid state, which is in the midst of the commission of genocide, to support such a resolution? So, no doubt, you understand, it's understandable. Then you come to the European community and its states. And, Massa, you just quoted Mackenzie. His reasons are clear that if we pursue this question of reparation, Europe will become bankrupt. Europe will die.
We have to sell the UK.
Why? Because today there is no institution in Europe, educational institution, financial institution, religious institution, there is no institution in Europe which is not surviving or making progress because of the accumulation which was made from the transatlantic slave trade. Every institution in Europe. Europe is what it is because of our exploitation. And that exploitation continues till today. And I've always given one example. Look at Barclays Bank. Barclays Bank, the Barclays Bank we see today, and we think is doing so well. What is its origin? Barclays Bank was established by the Barclay brothers, two brothers, who were slave traders. Barclays Bank was established with slave money. Okay? Look at the religious institutions. The richest religious institution in the world today, in terms of its land ownership, in terms of its interest in financial institutions as well, is the Catholic Church. A big beneficiary of the transatlantic slave trade. In fact, the legal justification for the transatlantic slave trade was issued by the Pope, the papal bull, issued in 1452. You understand? So if we pursue this agenda of reparation, they fear, the Europeans fear, that their economies will collapse. They will have nothing to hang on. Already today, as we speak here, the inflation, the rate of inflation in Britain, as of a couple of weeks ago, was 30%. The British economy is dying. The German economy, which was robust, is now nose diving and so on. They are in a panic state. So if you listen to their politicians who are saying that, oh, they should even have voted against the resolution and so on, the reason they give is that if we come for what belongs to us, they will have nothing left. We should wake up. You understand? We should wake up. Now, my brother, if you come to examine the reasons why people are taking different positions and so on, you will be amazed. There are some people who think that this whole exercise was led by President John Dramani Mahama. It has improved his stature in the world. Today, he appears as a leader of not just Africa, but a leader of Africa and the Caribbean. He's a prominent leader and so on. They cannot tolerate it. If you continue to push this agenda for reparation and so on, they think it enhances the personality of John Dramani Mahama. So don't do it. Pull it down. Pull it down to finish Mahama. But they forget that in that myopic exercise of pulling down Mahama, they pull down themselves, they pull down their communities, they pull down their country, and eventually pull down the whole of Africa and the African diaspora. They forget it. So there's that block which is there. Now there's another block of petty bourgeois intellectuals and business people who are sitting down and are planning to go to New York. They are planning to go to Washington. They are looking at the consular officer at the US Embassy. I'm going to present my passport for a visa. I should say things which would not annoy them so that I can get my visa. That category is there. The visa politicians, they're there. So for them, all of this discussion is about them applying for visa and getting visas. And they want to be seen. They want the US Embassy to hear them. That they are defending them so they can get visas. They are there. That's their interest. Petty as that interest is, that interest is still there. Then, Sana, there are those of us who are completely miseducated. And it is not our fault that we are miseducated. We were born into a system where our educational curriculum was decided by the slave owners. Okay? And they gave us an orientation. They shaped our views about the world. They shaped our views about geopolitical events and so on. So it was that we went to schools in which we were told that colonialism had negative and positive impact. Positive impacts of colonialism. So we went to schools which taught us that the transatlantic slave trade had a positive impact. So in our final examinations, we were asked to write essays about the positive and negative impact of the slave trade. Total miseducation.
And write some part.
So you see us, and sometimes we carry the title of professor, Professor Kominini, Dr. This. We have master's degrees and so on. But Master, our brains are full of cotton wool inserted into our skulls by our oppressors. You understand? Master, there are some of us who would not identify with African spirituality. Because we have been made to believe that identifying with African spirituality will send us straight to hell. So there are some of us who, even when we have become leaders of our countries and so on, insist that we should not pour libation at state functions. You understand? We refuse to listen to eminent people in the Catholic Church like Bishop Kwesi, who says that the Holy Communion and the pouring of libation is one and the same. We refuse to listen to that. And it is because of our miseducation. It is because we have been miseducated. That is why we take that position. That is there. Then, of course, there are some who are genuine about their criticism. They are very genuine about their criticism. Okay? Because I have spoken to some people in my lifetime who have said that the colonial era was better than today. They believe that. And one old lady that I spoke to who said that the colonial era was better than today, this must have been about 20 years ago or 30 years ago, when so-called essential commodities were difficult to come by. Imported evaporated milk was difficult to come by. Corned beef imported was difficult to come by. You couldn't find conflicts and so on. And this woman from my hometown in the central region thought that eating conflicts was better than drinking cocoa. And she couldn't find conflicts. She couldn't find condensed milk on the shelves and so on. So for her, colonialism was much, much better than the governments we've had after independence. And she's genuine about it. You understand? Her position, excuse my language, is absolutely silly. It is not liberating and so on. But that is her position. She believes it. She's genuine about it and so on. So these are the kinds of reactions that we are getting. Excuse me. I think it is important to test some of the claims which are being made. And one of the claims which are being made today, unfortunately some by so-called educated intellectuals in our community, is that, look, the slave trade happened centuries ago. The current generation of Europeans and Americans and so on cannot be held responsible because they didn't do it. They didn't benefit from it. You understand? It is their ancestors who carried out the trade, who benefited from it. And because of that, it is unfair to ask them for reparations. So now you know what is wrong with this argument. You see, a little learning or ignorance is a poison everybody must avoid. Now, when the slave trade was abolished, Britain decided to pay compensation to the slave owners for losing their property. Do you know that Britain continued to pay that compensation up until 2015? The descendants of the slave owners continued to derive compensation, profit from the slave trade up until 2015. So if you were collecting compensation for your great-grandfathers losing their slaves up to 2015, how can you then argue that you are not the beneficiary? It doesn't make sense. You know, today, I hope I'll be allowed to use appropriate language. Because sometimes we sanitize the language so much that you can't get your message across. To argue that today's generation of British, of Germans, of whoever, are not beneficiaries is to be stupid. Absolutely stupid. To be ignorant is to not to understand history until 2015, they were still collecting compensation. Now, when we talk about crimes against humanity, I mean, some people, they see the photographs of that era. They see women and men in chains and so on. And they think that this struggle is about the chains which were put on our hands and feet. It goes beyond that. The transatlantic slave trade reduced us, deliberately reduced us to the level of animals. Google it. You would find that there was a period in history where the most expensive leather bags and belts were made with human skin. Whose skin was used? It was the black skin which was used to make leather bags and belts. They treated us like snakes, like cows, and so on. You understand? We use snake skin, cow hide, and so on to make leather bags. That's how we were treated in the past. Our body was raw material for manufacturing belts and bags. That's one of the crimes committed against us. You understand? It didn't end there. Look, if an European or an American bought a slave, the slave was his or her property in the same way that the domestic fowl is your property. Because if the slave gave birth, the children did not belong to the slave, they belonged to the slave owner. Can you imagine it? This is the crime which is committed against us, one of the crimes committed against us. Now listen, the transatlantic slave trade led to the destruction of African science. Our science was deliberately destroyed. There is a case of a woman from Elimina here, who had a cat as a pet. This true story. And the cat scratched her, okay? So she had some skin problems and so on. So she used an African balm to cure the scratch in her hand. She was arrested for witchcraft, tried in the Elmina castle, eventually deported to Portugal for a continuation of the trial, and she was convicted of witchcraft. Do you get the import of this? If you use African medicine, it was witchcraft. You could be sentenced, you could be arrested, tried, prosecuted, and sentenced for using African medicine. This is a very well documented case in history. But you see, the people who are commenting on this matter, they don't know this. There was a deliberate effort to ridicule the African personality, to reduce the African personality to a subject of curiosity and so on. And again, there's a case of Brenda, a South African woman. You know, when the Europeans came here, they saw the African physique. It was different from their own physique. Our women are more endowed in the behind and so on. They saw it. Rather than admire it, you know what they did to Brenda? They captured Brenda, took her to Europe, put her in a glass cage, and exhibited her from city to city. This woman was so humiliated, she committed suicide. The African personality, the physical personality itself, was attacked. by the transatlantic slave trade. You understand? Now, recently, talking about the destruction of African science and so on, recently, during the COVID pandemic, there was a lot of discussion about vaccines, vaccines and so on. I didn't know. In the course of the discussion about vaccines, it turned out that the art of vaccination, the technology of vaccination, came from West Africa. That it was a West African slave from the region of Liberia or thereabout who took that science to the United States of America. Today, how many African countries are producing vaccines? Look at the havoc we underwent when COVID broke out. This is the destruction of our science and so on. Now, you see, they say that the slave trade was backed by law. Who would dispute that? But we know that apartheid, the government of apartheid, exercises power through law, apartheid law. Does that justify apartheid? It doesn't. In the same way that the law which justified the transatlantic slave trade cannot be accepted by we the victims as lawful. And we know where that law came from. That law came from the Catholic Church. That law came from the U.S. Supreme Court, and we cannot accept that as lawful. The other argument which they make, which just kills me, and sometimes since this resolution was passed, I've heard even lawyers make that argument, and I'm wondering, are these lawyers making this argument? They say that, look, the resolution establishes a hierarchy of laws. And because it establishes a hierarchy of laws, it cannot be accepted. The American delegate made that argument. The delegates of the European Union made that argument. But Senna is one of the most useless arguments which has ever been made. Every law establishes a hierarchy. Ghana here, in Ghana, there are some crimes which are tried by the magistrate court. Alright? Some crimes cannot be tried by the magistrate court. They are tried by the circuit court. There are some crimes which cannot even be tried by the circuit court. They are tried by the high court. Is that not a hierarchy? For some crimes, you will end up with a small fine. You will go back home. In fact, bail is automatic for some crimes and so on. For some crimes, bail is not automatic. Is that not a hierarchy? For some crimes, you are sentenced to death by hanging. Is that not a hierarchy? So some crimes are more grievous than the others. And because some crimes are more grievous than the others, a hierarchy is established. So to argue that a resolution establishes a hierarchy of law and therefore that resolution must not be passed is to be mischievous, is to be dishonest, and is to display the highest level of illiteracy. Can't believe it. But they were making this dressed nicely in suit and tie, pretending to be representatives of civilized countries. And they were making this argument in the UN General Assembly. Okay? Now, Senna, then there is this other argument, and this argument simply just kills me. The argument that the African was complicit. that we sold our own people into slavery. Where is it coming from? Where are the facts? Look, the minimum estimate I have seen is that 12.6 million Africans were enslaved, shipped out of the continent and enslaved. Okay. But for every one African who was enslaved, 3 others were killed. How were they killed? They were killed because there were wars of resistance. Our people resisted slavery. We fought against it. Check the history of Dagbon. Check the history. Samora and Babatu and so on. Go and check the historical record. We fought against slavery. We died in the millions. More than 50 million Africans died fighting against the transatlantic slave trade. That is on the continent. On the slave ships, the resistance continued. We fought. Even when we arrived on the plantations, we continued to fight. That is how Toussaint Louverture, the founder of modern Haiti, became an African hero. Toussaint Louverture was a slave. He had no education. He educated himself. He mastered weaponry. He ran away from the slave plantation and organized to free other slaves, took them to the mountains and established the modern Republic of Haiti. The modern Republic of Haiti was established as a result of the resistance of the African people to the transatlantic slave trade. So if you don't know history, shut up. Don't waste our time. Look, my brother, if you go to Europe today, if you go to the European museums today, some of the things on display are the heads of Africans, heads which were cut by the colonial armies, by the enslaving armies. Whose heads are those on display? They are the heads of our heroes who resisted the transatlantic slave trade. They are the heads of our heroes who took up weapons and fought against the transatlantic slave trade. Those are the heads on display in the European museums today. They are not the heads of those who collaborated with them. They are the heads of those who fought them and so on. Yes, it is true that there were some Africans who served as guides. They didn't know the interior and so on. But those Africans themselves were victims. They were victims. They were not collaborators. They were victims. And that is why the benefit of the transatlantic slave trade is not in Africa, it is in Europe. If they were collaborators, they should have also benefited. Where are the benefits of the transatlantic slave trade in Africa today? Show me! Show me where the benefits are. So they were not collaborators, they were victims. In any case, we should ask the important question, very important question, which is that, look, which country in the world did not undergo slavery at some point in its development? You see, people don't learn, they don't read, they don't try to understand history, and they wake up and they talk nonsense. You see, I see history as a science. I'm a Marxist. I see history as a science. And there are two ways of understanding current society and visualizing future society. One of the ways is historical materialism, and then dialectical materialism. These are the two sciences which provides us with the guide. Now, Senna, Every society in the world, European, Asian, Caribbean, African, whatever, started as a primitive communal society. None of us can escape that. We have our origins in the primitive communal society. If you go to secondary school, you are told that that is the era of hunter-gatherers. The era of the hunter-gatherer is the primitive communal society. Mas, are you listening? Hmm? From there was a transition to the slave state. So all of us, Europeans, Africans, Asians, whatever, went through the slave state, where some owned others as a means of production and so on. So nobody escaped that. Now, that slave state in which we went does not justify the transatlantic slave trade. You understand? It was a socio-economic formation which emerged in our development. It doesn't justify the transatlantic slave trade. Of course, from the era of slavery, there was then the transition to the feudalist system, the feudalist era. And capitalism developed out of the feudalist era. And we believe that socialism would emerge out of the capitalist era. These are stages of development that every society has gone through. So to say that Africa had slaves and therefore Africa has no right to make any claims out of the transatlantic slave trade and so on is to display a level of ignorance which is monumental. A level of ignorance which is monumental. You don't even understand the stages of development that every society in the world has had to go through. You think it is Africa. Shame on you. Ignorance. Display of bloody ignorance. Unbelievable ignorance. You understand?
Maybe they are deliberate.
Well, but if you want to portray yourself deliberately as an ignorant person, then there's something wrong with you. How can we describe you beyond seeing you as a fool? You understand? But this is the reality. Yesterday, no, 2 days ago, I heard one of my colleagues in the media. What? Why would you give a microphone to such an ignorant person to poison our population? And you know what he was saying? That, oh, Africans, we had our own slaves. We used to call them Donko. The guys called them Udonko, and some people called them Donko, and so on. So these white people came, and they said they wanted slaves. And we willingly sold our Udonkos to them.
Thanks for watching. Like and share the video. You can also drop your comment. Please don't forget to subscribe. Click on the bell to turn on the notification.